Hello everyone! I can't believe another month has come and gone. It's almost March. So here I am with another what I read in the month of February. At first I was kind of nervous about this month because January I had such a good reading month and I was nervous about how this month would be like, but it turned out alright. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. This month I did do a buddy read with Noah Jasmine, and I also did the late night book club read and the book troop read. So I had 2 book clubs and 1 buddy read. So yeah, let's get started. So the month of February I read 6 books. Ooh. So yes, I am still on track with my goal this year. On Goodreads, I have it so that my goal is at 30, which is what I set it to every single year. And then if I surpass it, awesome. If I'm below it, but usually I do tend to read at least 30, at least 25-ish. So 30 is an achievable goal for me, and it's less pressure if I just have it set at 30. But my actual goal is to be able to read 50 books this year. And so yeah, I think I am on track. Last month I did read 7 books, so I think it helps me that I am ahead of my goal, my schedule, my reading track, whatever you call it. So yeah, we're doing good. Okay, so as always I like to talk about the books in the order I read them, so I'm going to start with 1984 by George Orwell. I did a whole reading vlog on this, I'll link it up here. This is a classic book that I think most everyone has read it in high school. I did as well, and it was like alright. So this was a buddy with Noah Jasmine, and it was everything I kind of remembered it to be. I remembered about the Big Brother and how this is the future world where people have less freedom and less freedom of thoughts and choices. You have to kind of just do what you're expected to do. And yes, it is a scary world. So yeah, I did have fun annotating in this book and kind of just remembering what I read in high school. I'm glad that I read it, like I said in my reading vlog, but it wasn't like mind-blowing or anything. I gave this book 3 stars out of 5. Next up, I listened to via audiobook The Wrong Family by Tarryn Fisher. This was for the book trip by Gabby Reed. The synopsis sounds interesting. So basically the plot is there is a married couple, let me look at my book notes. Winnie and Nigel Crouch. They have a son named Sam. And then there's also Juno. She is a retired therapist and she went through a divorce and she has lost contact with her own family. And so she's just trying to live the rest of her retired life in a quiet, no drama zone. But one night she overhears Nigel and Winnie talking about something that's a big secret in the family. And then so drama ensues. So that plot sounds really interesting, and I had high hopes for this book. And I love thriller books. But I don't know what happened. It was very confusing. There were many points where I wish I had a physical book so I could look back on what was happening, because I was very confused with what was happening with Juno, the therapist. If you've read the book, maybe you've had the same experience as I did. I was really confused. Yeah, and even with the ending where you do find out what the mystery, the secret was, it wasn't as mind-blowing as I thought it would be. So yeah, overall it was kind of meh for me. For this book I gave it 2 stars out of 5, which I usually don't do. Next I read Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. This book came into my radar thanks to the new Netflix special. It's like a limited Netflix special. Usually Netflix specials, like limited series, are good. Like, it is so good. I watched the first episode of it and I found out that it's based on this book by Margaret Atwood, and I just had to read it because I love Margaret Atwood. So I got it at the library immediately. It is a very long book. It took me a month to finish this. So I actually technically started this in January and I finally finished it in February. It's not bad, it's just how Margaret Atwood writes with such details. So what is this book about? This book is actually based on a true historical figure. She was called Grace Marks, and she was a 16-year-old girl who was like a maid in a house. She got accused of murdering her master and the mistress of the house, along with I think it was the stable boy. So he got punished by death. But Grace Mark, because she was so young, everyone assumed that she was innocent, and she didn't know what she was doing. So they actually excused her from the death sentence, but instead put her in prison for life. And the weird thing is, she does not remember what happened in that moment when her master and the mistress was killed. Like that part of the memory is completely erased. It's gone conveniently. So it's about her. I think at that time she's like 25. It's almost like been 10 years, and she one day gets visited by a therapist. I assume they call him like a doctor, like of the brain, so maybe a therapist. He starts talking to her every day to see if he can like wiggle her memory to find out what really happened and if she is really innocent or guilty. So the book just goes back and forth between her past life before she was in prison and her telling her story to the doctor. Yeah, and it just kind of goes really slowly. It was interesting, but it wasn't my favorite Margaret Atwood book. I'm glad I read it because I didn't even know about this book until that Netflix show. And I do find it fascinating that it's actually based on a real person. Like, I love historical fiction, so that was really interesting to me. So I did give this book 3 stars out of 5 in the end. Okay, the next book I read was Grown. This was for the Late Night Book Club. By Tiffany D. Jackson. Just right away, trigger warnings for sexual abuse, rape, assault, child abuse, kidnapping, and drug addiction. It's a whole bunch of heavy topics in this book that is addressed. So this book is about Enchanted Jones. She's an aspiring singer. She is 17 years old, and she one day goes to an audition for like singing competition like American Idol. Unfortunately, she doesn't win that singing competition, but she captures the eye of a notorious famous R&B singer called Corey Fields. So he just kind of pulls her aside backstage, gives her his number, and then their thing starts. He gives her like special treatment, like gives her like studio time and promises her that she will be able to record her own album and he'll make her famous. So yeah, and then things get bad. In the back of the book, it says that Enchanted Jones wakes up one day with blood on her hands and she doesn't know what happened. So that's kind of what made me really into the book. I wanted to find out what that scene was, like why did she wake up with blood on her hands, what happened. So that's kind of what kept me going in the book, but otherwise it made me really uncomfortable to read this book. Corey is 28 years old and she is underage. She's like 17, and it's kind of like grooming. I said it in my vlog too, but it kind of reminded me of what R. Kelly did and a lot of famous people do, grooming young people and taking advantage of them so they could get like famous and get rich and whatnot. It was like, I don't know, it was really heavy, but I think it is important that we know these kind of things do happen in real life. So yeah, it was hard to read, it was sad to read, but also very important, I feel like. So I gave this book 4 stars out of 5. Okay, the next book I listened to, Full Love Story. I love this book so much. This book was a perfect like romance story for the month of February. It made me really happy inside. It was really cute. It is about Bao and Linh. They are both children of rival Vietnamese restaurants. They're literally across the street from each other. Their parents hate each other for whatever reason, they don't know. You do find out later on though. The parents hate each other, so naturally the children are not supposed to talk to each other at all, but they go to the same school and they see each other around across the street. So one day Bao and Linh see each other privately, and then they start this friendship, and it's really cute. I love that it kind of addresses racism and the hardship of immigration and being a second generation as well of immigrant parents. So yeah, it was very interesting, and I've been to Vietnam in 2019 with my friend, and it brought back memories of there. It was just so cute. It's just a cute romance, and I would highly recommend listening to this on audiobook because there's so many Vietnamese words or phrases that come up in the story. The narrators in the book are for Bao and Linh, and they both are Vietnamese people, so they do pronounce the words correctly and perfectly, of course. So it made the experience much more enjoyable. I gave this book 5 stars out of 5. And the last book I read this month is The Gigantic Beard That Was Evil. This is a graphic novel, and I have made it my goal to read at least 1 graphic novel every month because I am just privileged to be able to go to a library that has graphic novels, and I get to read them, so why not, right? So this book has been on my TBR for so long, I think since 2015, 2014, so I'm so glad I finally got to read it. It has beautiful illustrations. I love how the illustrator did the paneling as well, like this. So this book is about Dave. He's basically hairless. He only has hair, that's a wig, and he only has hair on his eyebrows and this tiny little hair under his nose. And he lives in this perfect town on this island called Here, where everybody is clean shaven, dressed appropriately, the streets are lined up perfectly, but then they're always in fear of the there. The there is the ocean that surrounds the island. They're always scared of the there because they are not sure what's out there. They're scared of the unknown. So they stick to their everyday lives in the here. They try to ignore the fact that they live on the island that's surrounded by the ocean. One day, though, Dave starts growing a beard. And it just keeps growing and growing no matter what he does, and it goes out of control. And so that's where our story starts in this book. Even though the title is talking about a beard, it's more focused on the town and the society on the island of Here. And I love that it subtly addresses like fitting into society and being weird. And it took me a little bit until after I finished the book when I realized that it's talking about like commentating on how people are sometimes too afraid of what's expected of them to be who they truly want to be. And yeah, it has a lovely message in this book. And again, like I said, illustrations are beautiful, the panels are beautiful. I highly recommend this graphic novel. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't a perfect book for me, but it's still like up there for me. Yeah, so this is a nice way to end the month of February. Okay, so that was it for the month of February. Again, I read 6 books. It was awesome. I'm still on track with my reading goal. I hope March will bring warmth and spring and happiness to all of us, and that we'll have a good reading month, good month in general. And I hope you're all doing well. I'll see you next time. Bye.